Hey, how's it going? You know, there's this thing called cosmic horror. It's a subgenre of horror that's interesting and a little misunderstood. See, cosmic horror is meant to say something profound about the nature of human existence, but in practice I think most attempts at cosmic horror tend to just spend the whole time slapping tentacles on things like a retired Japanese sex addict with too much disposable income. Anyway, at its best, cosmic horror can be a really fascinating look into how the human psyche deals with finding out that humanity is not the protagonist of the universe. How is humanity meant to deal with not being all that important in the grand scheme of things? Interesting question. Now, personally, I think we actually can eventually conquer the universe to such a degree that our descendants will basically be the protagonists of reality one day. You know, Kardashev 3 or 4 style. Give it a few billion years, I'm sure we'll get there. But right now, we haven't even built a Dyson swarm, so God, I mention Dyson swarms so often you'd think I'm some kind of paid actor funded by Big Dyson. Whatever. Cosmic horror, let's go. Cosmic horror is also known as Lovecraftian horror because it was popularized by a guy called H.P. Lovecraft in the early 20th century. Now, I know what you're thinking, Zan. H.P. Lovecraft sounds like a romance-themed Minecraft expansion set inside the warehouse of a British sauce manufacturer, but no, I promise it was actually a guy. Anyway, the whole point of cosmic horror, like, you know, the bit that's meant to be horrific, is the insignificance of humanity in the face of a completely indifferent universe. This particular guy inventing this genre kinda makes sense if you think about it. Given the time period that H.P. Lovecraft lived in, he was around when we were figuring out how big the universe actually is. For the longest time, we assumed that our galaxy and the universe were one in the same, not realizing that our galaxy is more like a small island universe and that there are actually more of them out there. It was during Lovecraft's time that Edwin Hubble discovered that the Andromeda Nebula, as it was called back then, was actually filled with stars of its own, you know, billions of them, and therefore wasn't a nebula within our galaxy, it was an entire other galaxy. And then we realized there's countless more of them, and then we realize they're getting further apart from each other, and that raises the question of what they're even expanding into. You can see how an increasing scope of awareness of how gigantic the universe is could make a weird loner guy with crippling anxiety and a general fear of things he's unfamiliar with feel quite uncomfortable. And from my understanding, Lovecraft did seem to be a bit of a weird loner with crippling anxiety, and I don't think it's distorting the truth to say he was a bit of a gigantic racialist. I mean, you don't give a cat the name he gave his cat unless you're up to your nipples in xenophobia. What did he call his cat? What? His cat? What was it called? Why would I say it out loud? Oh, how am I meant to know why it's bad? Oh, take a guess, genius. Jesus Christ. Listen, do you know the country Niger? Yeah. Imagine a superhero from there. Okay. What would they be called? Captain Niger? No. The Amazing Human Nigerian? What? No. Niger Man. Oh, okay. Okay, now add a G somewhere. Where? Use your imagination. Niger Mang? No. Niger Magan? No. Niger Magan? Just stop. Niger Man? Stop. Nigegra Man? Shut the hell up, or so help me Christ, I will tear out my frontal lobe and beat you to death with it. Pretty sure I'm in your frontal lobe. Pretty sure I'm in your mum, alright? Shut the fuck up. Anyway, Lovecraft was a writer. He wrote a bunch of shit. Call of Cthulhu, The Mountains of Madness, some other ones. His work established the ideas and tropes and stuff that have been kind of carried forward in this genre over the following decades. Now, I'll just be 100% real with you. I've only read a small handful of his works. I'm not a big reader, to be honest. Well, not a big fiction reader anyway. I don't know why. It's probably partly my atrophied zillennial attention span. But even when I'm engaging with some type of media, while I do find a story to be a good way to add depth and personal stakes and meaning to a fictional universe, it's almost kind of the secondary thing for me. Maybe some of you guys are in a similar position. Like, I'm playing through Death Stranding 2 right now, and I'm significantly more interested in the user interface design and the design of the cool plasticky futuristic clothing everyone wears, and whether you could really make a backpack with that much bullshit in it than the actual life and death stakes of what's actually happening to the main character, which is the thing I'm hypothetically meant to care about. I do really enjoy learning about the background lore of a universe, but you can just watch or read informational things about that specifically. I guess the major exception to this is when the story and the lore of a franchise kind of blur together into one thing, kind of like how All Tomorrow's storyline is literally just a several billion year long list of things that happened to humanity. Or maybe the Horus Heresy books. I mean, those are basically the story of how the Warhammer 40k universe ended up being so catastrophically fucked. That said, I haven't read the Horus Heresy either because I only have a finite lifespan and there are more entries in that book series than there are letters in this goddamn sentence. Anyway, my point with this never-ending series of vaguely relevant tangents is that I'm not an authority on cosmic horror, but I do appreciate it and the effects that it's had on wider media. And I wish we could get more cosmic horror actually done well, because there's not that many modern examples examples I can think of that have really done it justice. Traditional horror revolves around tangible threats like monsters and killers and ghosts and interdimensional space pedophiles, but cosmic horror is more about existential futility. The common theme is how completely irrelevant humanity is compared to the cosmic horrors that might exist in the universe. Like, here's an average H.P. Lovecraft story. I'm just gonna make one up, right? Let's say a guy finds an old dusty book with weird symbols that look to have been written in blood, which is now dried up and turned brown. Either that or it was written by someone using a stiff turd as a pencil. The guy tries to solve the meaning of the book and follows a bunch of clues that lead him to an underground ancient temple where he gets captured by a cult of poop worshippers who made the book explicitly for the purpose of luring someone in to use as a human sacrifice to resurrect an ancient cosmic poo monster that's going to flush the entire planet down a galactic toilet the second it wakes up. And the protagonist guy sees the poop monster the size of a continent slumbering deep below the underground temple, and the sight is so horrific it makes him go insane. He somehow escapes the ancient Dookie temple and writes down his weird traumatic story before drowning himself in a septic tank because he'd rather give in to despair and become a dead body covered in poo than live with the lingering knowledge that we might all die instantly and pointlessly at any moment due to some kind of universal turd-based catastrophe. There you go, that's my knockoff cosmic horror story. Call of the Poo-Poo. You could make a cinematic universe out of this. So each of H.P. Lovecraft's stories were kind of their own individual thing, dealing with one instance of some weird horrific cosmic entity being discovered or whatever, but the stories had enough crossover that they basically became this big interconnected universe with an entire pantheon of different ancient deities with different origins and properties and desires, like Cthulhu and Azathoth and Yog-Sothoth and another one that sounded kind of racially suspect, so I'm not going to try and pronounce it. There are all these different weird individual entities that roam the universe independently with their own goals, and absolutely none of them give half a deep-fried fuck what humanity thinks about anything. They're all like forces of nature. If they want something, you can be as sure that that thing's going to happen as you are about the world continuing to spin. Their will is more inevitable than a push after a morning coffee. Thing is, they're all sort of depicted as a ball of sludge or as someone entering a Davy Jones lookalike contest. The descriptions we get are hinted to be not what they actually look like. Like the massive tentacles or whatever is just the protagonist describing how their feeble human mind was capable of witnessing them. Whatever these things are, they're so alien and so massive and so powerful and so godlike that the idea is your brain just like short circuits and you can't really understand what you're actually looking at, which is a cool, maybe slightly goofy idea. Sorry to interrupt, this is just a quick message to say, statistically speaking, you're probably not subscribed, so I'll make you a deal. Press the subscribe button and I won't come over to your house and do this. Alright, thanks, back to the video. The thing is, these big monster things aren't evil. They don't seek to harm humanity. They're just indifferent. In the same way you're indifferent to the insects you probably step on or drive on every day when you're going to and from the office. You don't hate them. You don't even know they're there. You just consider yourself so far above them that you don't really think about it or potentially even give a shit. The closest you'll get to caring is if a bunch of ants start wandering in a circle on top of your kitchen table, and in that case you'll notice them and either gently put them outside or set the table on fire. And that's kind of how cultists show up a lot in cosmic horror and almost end up causing the end of the world every 5 minutes. Come to think of it, you could make a comedy series out of that premise. The main character's a normal guy, but his roommate's an idiot who keeps accidentally joining cosmic death cults. Yeah, I'd probably watch that. Anyway, the influence of cosmic horror has extended into other mediums. I can think of a few movie examples. The Thing is a really good one. Event Horizon, maybe? Sunshine, kind of. Which I really recommend, by the way. That's a really underrated movie. Annihilation, that was good. The just looked like a awesome shit. That was cool. For video games, there was Bloodborne. That entire game had its head inside of Lovecraft's asshole. Another banger was Elden Ring, which you'd think would lose to Bloodborne in a cosmic horror contest between games made exclusively by From Software, but Elden Ring has an unexpectedly large amount of Lovecraftian nonsense in it. I also prefer high fantasy knights and wizards to getting stabbed in fucking landing in it, but that's neither here nor there. Anyway, those are some good examples, but for every good example, there's at least 5 or 10 pieces of slop that basically go, oh, we've got a monster, and it looks like it had an accident and fell into a vat of sushi, and therefore this must be cosmic horror, which I think is missing the point quite a lot. I don't know, tentacled creatures might have been more intense and crazy to think about when you were someone who lived in the early 20th century, but I'm pretty sure at this point, when we all have televisions and nature documentaries and shit, I'm pretty sure we are all familiar with the concept of an octopus. It's not that crazy anymore. If you want me to really feel some existential dread from your giant cosmic monster, you either need to not actually show it, like Elden Ring, and you're just showing the effects it's had on fucking the entire world up, or do show it, but show it as something actually insane and incomprehensible, like whatever the hell that thing was at the the end of Annihilation. You can't, for example, make a video game based on the player being the most vicious killing machine in the universe and then also put something that looks like Cthulhu in it and then call it cosmic horror, because that's just not how that works. Hilariously, given how much scope there is for humanity to expand and grow in power and influence and wisdom into the deep future, when I think of beings capable of devouring entire star systems and having goals which are completely incomprehensible to us, I don't really think of aliens so much as I think of what we'll become in deep time. And I know it's a little gutting that you're not going to be there to witness that happen, but at least you can glue some squid entrails to your beard and terrify some children right here and right now, and that's kind of a close second, I think. Anyway, thanks for watching, guys. Big thanks as always to my elite level channel members, Thunderbolt22A10, who can eat a watermelon whole, Nomad Greg, who has X-ray vision so long as the thing he's trying to look through is already kinda see-through already, Yannick Spathe, who'd already invented the smell-o-vision before television had been invented, Andrew Maul, who can slice a hole in the space-time continuum using only a pencil sharpener, John Bejarano, who was the one who let the dogs out back in the year 2000, and thanks to all my other members too. Join the channel if you like, and as always, I'll catch you in the next one. Over and out.